So to start the podcast, Marnie, do you want to update everybody on your life?
Yes, well, only a portion of my life.
Oh, okay, not the whole thing.
Not the whole thing. We'd be here forever if I did that.
Wow.
So Josh and I went to the footy this afternoon, went to saw North play. We had a lovely afternoon, and then I said goodbye to him, and I was going to meet him back at his house to record the podcast. And I
Mm.
get to my car, and I noticed that my tire was flat. Um, and so, so I had to call the roadside assist because between myself, my brother, my dad, and my brother's girlfriend, we could not change my tire. So, an hour and a
That's
half
too many
later, the
people.
roadside is too many people, and none of us could make it work. So,
That's wild.
yeah, I called Josh about 7 times, and I was like, I just don't think I'm gonna be able to get there. So,
Mm.
look, we wanted to still record. We wanted to get something to you guys because we obviously had a fun day at the footy, and there's so much to talk about from that practice game,
Mm.
and a few bits and pieces that have happened during the week as well. So sorry for the low budget production this this evening, but hopefully you guys enjoy it nonetheless.
We're working class here at Further North. We don't operate on big budgets. We do a lot with a little, just like the North Melbourne Football Club. So, um, I apologize for the darkness as well on my end here. There's currently no light in front of me. I've only got the light in the room on, and I'm all shadowed out. So, um, pretty standard stuff. Marnie's going to be the center of attention here, and I'm just going to be a big shadow. So, just the usual proceedings there. So, all right,
The show
podcast
must
time.
go on. The show
The show
must go
must go
on.
on. Oh, God.
Thank you everyone for understanding. Yeah,
Mm.
rough afternoon.
So, before we get into the preseason game, we've got some talking points. I'd say, apart from today, the biggest news that's happened at the North Melbourne Football Club, Harry Sheezel is going to be here for 6 more years, mate. He's going to be here until 2030. Now, give me how you felt at the time when you saw that announced. Paint a word picture for me.
Incredible. I mean, I think, we can talk about massive contracts and, are they worth it? Are they not worth it? There's obviously been a lot of debate around that over the past couple of years. Kane Corns has constantly come out slamming big
Your
contracts.
mate.
I personally love it. My mate, yes, indeed. I personally love it. I think we all know Harry's going to be a star. I don't think,
Mm,
there's no shying away from that. And I think that it's just another sort of the more players and quality players, someone like a Harry Sheezel, Jai Simpkin, Nick Larkey, they're probably the most notable ones who have kind of come to the club in the last 12 months that have signed big contracts. And it just as a supporter and as a fan, it reaffirms that we are going in the right direction and that these
mm.
players do believe in the direction the club is heading in. And there's nothing more reassuring for us as fans to see, something like this happen. So I think this is, yeah, it's incredible news. I was actually at a club function on Wednesday night and they confirmed the news in the room there. And everyone obviously went wild. I think it's a great thing for the club. And I think that, we know he's going to be a star for years to come. So for him to be a star for us for the next at least 6 years, couldn't have wanted anything better, really.
No, I agree. I think this means a lot for North Melbourne as a football club too, because you're right. It does show that we're heading in the right direction and how much we have changed. Obviously, from having a lot of discussions at the barbershop, I feel like I can attest to this pretty well. The perception of our football club from the outside compared to what it's actually like is so different, and everyone perceives them so wrong. And once
Yeah.
again, we do know that Kane did predict a mass exodus, which I'm still waiting for that, which hasn't actually happened yet. But we know Harry's going to be a star, and for him to commit to the club until 2030, I think it just shows that the players believe the direction we're going. And you can put Larky in that basket, and obviously Jai as well. But I think, Sheezel and Larky have that superstar All Australian A grade potential, and one of them obviously is already there. For them to commit to the project is massive, and I think Alistair Clarkson should be absolutely applauded for. He's the reason Zurhaar's hanging around still. He's the reason so much has happened, and yeah, I think we can all rest assured that North is in very, very safe hands. One thing I said to a lot of people at the barbershop this week was I think North Melbourne fans might actually be the most excited and optimistic for the future because I talked to like Essendon fans and they are the most flat bunch of humans I've ever heard in my life. Hawks fans are sad because all their average players are getting injured. Port fans don't know what's going on. Collingwood fans are nervous and don't think they'll go back to back. I think North is actually the most positive club in the league right now as a
Do
fan
you think
base.
do you think it's because we have such a low bar and the football we've produced, I guess, in the intra club and then against Collingwood and today against
Hmm.
St Kilda, obviously we didn't get the win today. But do you think because the bar is so low at the moment that that I think that doesn't take much to exceed
Mhm.
our expectations or to get us excited?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't think that's somewhat a negative thing. I think you can phrase it negative. The bar is low, yes, but we know, but the confidence comes from knowing the bar will rise. So
Or
a
you
big
can
goal
just be
for
like
me,
blindly optimistic and completely unhinged like myself. And then
like you at the football today, yes, being a footy mum.
that's me every day of my
You didn't
life,
call
but
anyone
especially
by
with
their last
footy.
name. It was only first names.
It's like crazy football mum energy.
Oh, it was elite today. No, I think I think it is because we are used to having bad times, but I also think North is an incredibly level-headed, realistic fan base, and we know what's going on
Yeah.
inside the club compared to everyone on the outside who's incredibly negative, who doesn't know what's going on inside the club. And we can see that change 1, 2 years before anyone else can, and I think that's why we're positive. We'll go into many more
Yeah.
positives after the game today and that sort of stuff. But anyway, congratulations to Harry Sheezel. Buy your badges now, guys, because he's going to be around. You know, it's at least a 6-year investment for that $10, $11 badge. And what a good investment that would be. So I love Harry Sheezel. He's going to be ours until 2030. I'm going to be so old when his contract's up. Oh, my God.
Oh my
We
God.
won't
Yes,
talk
me
about that.
too. I'm older than you, so there you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, not, well, just.
I'll
Let's
probably
not
be
make,
walking around with the Zimmer frame by the time his
oh,
that
I hope I've
contract's
got one of
up.
those mobility scooters. That'd be sick. So anyway, fantastic news for North Melbourne. Fantastic news for Harry Sheezel. SEN can go and get stuffed trying to write an article saying that it's not good for Sheezel and it's good for North. But hey, standard negativity from everyone else other than North fans. But we'll move on and we won't give that too much time. Never read anything
No.
they write, guys, please. Um, Another one, a little bit of interesting news is apparently the Sydney Swans are targeting Cam Zurhaar at the end of the year. How are you feeling about that?
Well, who wouldn't be targeting Cam Zurhaar? He's out of contract, and the way at the end of the year, and the way that he spoke to the press a couple of weeks ago, you know, kind of suggested that maybe he's going to explore his options, which I think he should. I think that's, it's all part of it. Footy's a big
Yeah.
business now, and he, like anyone, wouldn't be doing his due diligence if he didn't, look around and see what else was
Mm.
out there, I suppose. You've said this quite a few times before. He's not the kind of I love North Melbourne, I'm loyal for life, buying into that sort of thing, like potentially someone like Larky would, and like he has. I just don't think he's that kind of guy either. I tend to agree with you on that one.
Mm.
I think that by halfway through the year, we'll probably have a better idea if he will re-sign or not. I don't know if he's going to re-sign until the end of the year, regardless if he does or if he decides to leave.
Yeah, I think this is going to become less and less popular now with AFL contracts. I think, I've talked about this a little bit before with other things like the mid-season trade period and stuff, but AFL is, if we like it or not, is going to slowly become more Americanized. One, because the younger generations are watching that stuff and are going to bring it into the sport, but also because the people who are in charge of it are always trying to innovate, and that's a big area where we can take things from. I think it's going to be pretty common not to have people signing midway through the season. Say in the next 5, 6 years, especially, I reckon most people go to the end of their contracts and wait. It's like the NBA. No one ever signs a contract before their contract's up. Everyone basically hits free agency. And then the fans don't even worry about it. They just go, oh, yeah, his contract's up, but they'll sort it out when the free agency comes. And everyone sort of chills. And I could definitely see it sort of going that way. So I have got roasted a couple of times in the comments about this Zurhaar take of mine, and I want to make it incredibly clear. I don't want Zurhaar to leave. I love Cam Zurhaar. Cam Zurhaar is one of the most fun players to watch, and on his day, he's the king of Marvel. We know that, but
Yeah.
I just get the gut feeling that he's probably not super committed to it. And maybe it is a body language thing, but I do get, Ben Mackay was similar to that. His body language never suggested that he was maybe super committed to what we were doing. And I think we need that as a fan base, knowing, there's a long road ahead. So I don't want Cam Zurhaar to leave. Absolutely. I'd sign him right now if I could. But my gut just tells me I think he's going to move on. I think Cam's got, and this is in a positive way. I think he's got an ego about him in a positive way, a confidence, not ego as in a negative thing at all. But
I think he's arrogant.
yeah, but I think he likes the lights. He likes the big stage, and why wouldn't he if you're that talented? So it's like, I think he would like to go and explore, playing in front of bigger crowds, playing in front of at the G and all that sort of stuff. So I love Cam Zurhaar, and I really, really want him to stay, and I hope he proves my gut feeling wrong. And it's only a gut feeling, but I don't blame him at all for testing the waters and that sort of stuff. But would love to see a commitment, or maybe even in press conferences, a little bit more passion towards what we were doing to give the fans, like me, a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, but on the flip side, and we'll get into today's game, but he was okay today. I don't think he really did anything extraordinary. I think more than one occasion, probably two, three, four of his kicks were smothered. I don't think he really had a big impact on the game. And I think that I don't put him in the same basket as a Larky or a Sheezel or like an LDU or a Simpkin, where it's a no-brainer. You'd sign him on for, a solid contract on decent coin.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that he is quite inconsistent. And it's maybe not so much as Paul Curtis. I've spoken about my hesitation with Paul Curtis before, which he proved me right again today. Zurhaar's best and worst isn't as far apart as a Paul Curtis, but Zurhaar's took a while to get going last season, and then he was obviously injured, and he looked really good in the preseason. He's obviously come back in incredible shape, but then that didn't really translate today on field. And there were plenty of players up forward who were quite good and who did make an impact on the game. So I think from the club's perspective as well, I would really, we would want to be putting the pressure on him as much as he would be wanting to put the pressure on the collective to win games. Mm-hmm. He's got to step up and actually win games for us as well. Because we know he's talented, right? And we know he's an asset. And I'm with you. I don't want him to leave. But do I think that we should just hand him this massive contract? Probably not, to be honest. Yeah. Not yet. Of course, I'd re-sign him, but I wouldn't be, putting any crazy, ridiculous figures in front of him yet. He hasn't really done, and in my eyes, enough to warrant a contract like we probably would have handed Sheezel earlier in the week. Yes, the contract, I would definitely give him something, but I think he probably needs to work and prove to us as well that he deserves it as much as we need to prove to him that, we're going in the right direction, that he should, jump on board and stay. So I think that, while we probably need to do the work on the field, I think he needs to just as much as the club does collectively.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I think LDU is the priority. Absolutely. Like, if they give LDU the Sheezel deal, I'm stoked with that and give it to him now, as far as I'm concerned. Zurhaar's quickly following that. Absolutely. There's a lot of players out of contract at the end of the year, which obviously is a future discussion. But I think Zurhaar's got as much to prove as we've got to prove to him. I think that's a really good analogy, or a good way to put it. So, hopefully that gives some of the North fans a little bit of confidence. But yeah, I think he's got plenty to prove, and we have to prove to him that we're worth his talent, and he's got to prove to us that he's going to be able to drag our club forward and move us forward with the talent he's got. But anyway, just a little rumor about Zurhaar and the Sydney Swans and that sort of stuff. Apparently the Swans offered Larky a massive deal. And he went, "See you later, Swans," staying in Melbs. So
I love Nick Larky.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him so much.
He's great.
He's so good. I love him.
So we might get into the game now. We're going to chat about the live podcast and how that went, but we might save that till after the game, because I reckon a lot of people are here for the game, and we know the true fans want to hear about how the podcast went. So we'll get into game first, and then we'll chat about live pod and anything else I've got written down here.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Okay, so we've got positives and negatives again. I've sort of gone quarter by quarter. I think Marnie's notes aren't quarter by quarter, but we'll try and put these together as
We'll
much as we.
marry them up.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah,
the
done.
first quarter, it was actually fairly decent from us. I think we didn't start incredibly strong, but we definitely weren't weak. The Saints were mildly the better team, I would say. Some of the positives I think from the first quarter was following on from the Collingwood game was the link up and the players in support. I think that first quarter, especially, we were hunting in packs and numbers, and that's something the last few years that I really have felt that North don't do well at all. There's always 5 Saints around the ball and 2 North players. Last year and this year or this preseason anyway, we look to be getting more people around the ball. When we are around the ball as well, I thought the pressure was quite good, which did force the Saints into some turnovers. So, did you pick up on any of that from the first? Do you have any specific notes you want to share as well?
No, because I missed pretty much the whole first quarter because I was waiting in line to get
Oh,
into the
true.
bloody
Yeah, you didn't come
ground.
in. Yeah, I made it on time, guys.
No.
I'm incredibly punctual, and I'm always on time. And Marnie's always
And I'm
late. So
always late.
always late. Yeah.
But
Um,
I don't know if anyone else had the same issue. We got there like what, 5-2,
the
and
crowd
we
was
were stuck.
massive. There was a massive
The
line.
crowd was huge. There was like over 8,000 people there. There was a queue like for miles long. By the time we got into the ground, it was like 20 minutes into the first quarter. So you guys have to trust Josh's analysis on the
Okay.
first quarter because I missed
I'll
it.
handle the first quarter then. All right, I'll keep going.
All right, all right, all
Um,
right, all right.
the other, you just sit back and listen to this, mate. This is fantastic analysis. Yeah, you just
Great.
relax.
I'm here.
More
I will.
positive points from the first quarter. Transition of halfback, once again, following on from the Collingwood game. Zach Fisher, and we'll talk about individual players after, but Zach Fisher,
He was so
McKercher,
good.
Goda, these guys off the back line. I don't know. Dylan Stevens is not on the throw in there, who is my next point here. I think he was the best player in the first quarter. We have transition ability here. Now, does it always work? No. But when it does, we look really, really threatening off halfback. Kicking, I think like our kicking and our handball disposal efficiency off the half back line in the first quarter was pretty decent. And Dylan Stevens really orchestrated all of that. He was absolutely everywhere in the first quarter. And I think I might have to throw him in for signing of the season. Like, I don't know. I
Big
really
call
like Dylan
early.
Stevens. I've got a man crush on Dylan Stevens, as you know, like I do George. And I don't know. I reckon he's just going to unlock everything. Here's something I said on the podcast last week, I think, Marnie, and you let me know if you agree with this. I really like the recruiting we've done off half back. As an example, we didn't have McKercher, Stevens, or Fisher last year. And definitely in the Collingwood game and definitely today, those players, and we'll throw Goda in there, even though we did have him last season, but those 3 in particular,
Yeah.
they're unlocking a whole new style of game plan for us. And
Yeah.
it's very strategic recruiting. I wrote down what I think our best, what our round 1 team's going to be. I'm not going to share. That's probably next week's podcast. Spoiler alert. But get that team
Thanks
ready
for
too,
giving
Marnie.
me. Thank
Yeah,
you for
enough
giving
time.
me more
Yeah.
than 12 hours notice this time. Yeah, that's nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, you know what? You'll probably still rock up on the day and be like, I forgot, or I haven't done it yet. So anyway, yeah. Do you agree that those players are really unlocking this new style of game plan, this North ball?
I do agree with you. I mean, like you love Dylan Stevens. I
I
also
do.
think he's fantastic, but I love Fisher. I think what Zach Fisher brought
Mm,
today was exceptionally at 36 touches. And I just think he created something out of nothing every single time. McKercher's a really interesting one. McKercher is in that same boat that Sheezel was in last year. He was drafted. He's never played off the halfback before. But you know what? He's just giving it a shot and he's going to learn something being there. And
mm.
he's clearly making it work. I mean, he's just adding it, a bit of extra class back there as well. So yes, I do agree with you. And I think that, I mean, we'll talk about individual players later, but I think those 3 players and Josh Goda. I thought Josh Goda was one of our best today as well. He even drifted
Mm.
forward, kicked a goal. Like I thought he was absolutely outstanding, and filled in really well for, probably that role that Luke McDonald would play, I would say.
Yeah.
And McDonald was the sub in the VFL today. I know he's coming back from injury, but if he's not careful, while I think McDonald will have a solid return this season, Goda could be in for his spot.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I mean, yeah, I can't imagine that McDonald is going to be playing round one after really playing no football. So, yeah, I mean, it's good. It's good that these players, which McDonald's a good footballer. Like, I know he didn't have the best year last year, but we know what he can do. And he is our captain, our co-captain. So, the fact that we're getting players now to put pressure on the opposition players or the players in their same position is good because we
Yeah,
finally
we've
have
started to get good depth.
competition.
Yeah,
Slowly. I'm
competition
not
for
saying there's
spots
great
and a
depth
bit of
there, but
depth.
it's better. Um,
We have
some of
options.
the negatives. I'll save this one till later. Actually, we won't talk about that yet. Skill errors lead to quick transition, and I think as much as our transition off halfback can look very electric, when we do turn it over, and I think we're going to see this most of the year, it gets turned over quick and hard, and it goes straight into that 50. I do think we've got better at where we turn the ball over. Last year, we were turning the ball over right on our defensive 50 line, basically, and it went straight over our head, one kick. We're turning it over a little bit higher up the ground because we are moving the ball quicker, but the skill errors, the handball, the kick efficiency is low. So if we can tighten that up and get better skills at the game, this game is going to be able to work. And that's something we're going to have to sit through and watch this year. The other thing for a negative in the first quarter was the defense does look lost at times, and they're definitely holding up as a unit better than I thought they would. Just with names on paper wise, obviously, it's not the most shiny names you'll ever see. As a unit against the Pies, we held up very, very well. And I think overall we held up decently against the Saints, but there's plenty of times where we do turn the ball over. It comes in quick and there's holes all over the joint. There was a few times where even I think Dylan Stevens did this a couple of times. Toby Pink was the same in a couple of occasions where no one sort of was manning up or marking up on somebody, and there was holes everywhere for Saints players to lead into, or no one picks the player up. And they get an uncontested mark inside 50. So that would be my only other negative. I think as a collective, they're holding up okay, but individually, sometimes it does lack a little bit.
I think with the defense, it's really hard as well because there's obviously so many new names in there. I mean, think about the back line today. I mean, Goda is really the only one that's, thumbs up,
Ooh,
Josh Goda.
Interesting.
Goda
Zuckerberg
is
really
watching. Goda is really, and is really the only one that's actually played, and he hasn't even played that much footy, to be honest.
I said to you at the game, I said Josh Goda might be our best defender going into round one.
I mean, you've got Fisher, who's come from Carlton. You've got McKercher, who's obviously just come to the club. You've got Goda, you've got Cal Dawson, Pink, and Biggie. Is that who we're working with today? I mean,
I think that's about 15 games of experience, it feels like, except Goda.
Yeah, obviously. And I mean, and Fisher has obviously
a lot, but not for North.
But not for North. And then Goda and Cal Dawson have played a handful of games each at North. I mean, that's going to take some time for them to gel together. And I think that is the one disadvantage of not having McDonald there, is he'd at least be able to, instruct the back line a little bit better. That's the problem with having Core not there either. I mean, obviously Core is a very good defender, yes, but he's also got that experience. He can kind of direct traffic a little bit. We've just got guys who have never played together, and none of them have really played much footy together. We're not talking about one or two new people that have come into the side. This is an entire side an entire backline that hasn't really played any footy together. So that considering, I know they're teammates, but that considered, I think that they are doing quite a good job. And again, we'll touch on players individually later. But I think that if we are, and this is something that I think I want to sort of talk about because we'll lead into the second quarter in a minute. If we are expecting a hard and really strong attack. So we're probably expecting to be scored against a lot as well,
Yes.
on the flip side. And the ball to come in hard and fast into our defense. We really need our midfield to step up. And there was a couple of guys in there today. LDU was definitely, for me, the one that really stood out as probably just was a bit underwhelming,
Mm.
and probably didn't really step up. I thought Bailey Scott was good, but I thought his disposal was a little bit sloppy. And there was quite a few turnovers from him as well. Now, these are two guys who are two of our more experienced players and excellent ball users. And so we probably just need them to kind of tidy the game up a little bit heading into round one. But then you've got someone like Zach Fisher, who, again, was going at, 80, I think you said 80% disposal
Yeah. Yeah.
efficiency, which is excellent. He had a great impact on the game. So I think that we are going to need more support from that midfield group in over this season, at the very least the first half of the year, because we are expecting to attack quite quickly and quite strongly, and then probably expect it to be rebounded in just as fast. And so we probably really just need that extra support because we've got such an inexperienced backline. So at the very least, until we get a couple of more experienced heads back, like Core and like McDonald, I think the team as a whole need to step up with that midfield group and the wingers in particular.
No, very true. So the first quarter ended 5-2 to 3-1. We were down, but I think a pretty decent performance. I think, we said this to some of the guys at the game today, but the Saints made the finals last year and should be in the finals again. I don't maybe believe they will be, but their expectation would be within the finals, and ours is getting off sort of the bottom of the ladder. So I think, in a more serious hit out, we ended that quarter pretty well, and 5-2 to 3-1. Yeah, I think we did okay. So coming out into the second quarter, now this is the bad quarter. This was atrocious. This was
Hard to
David Noble
watch.
football. This is what this was. So, look, I'll just rip out some negatives here really, really quickly. We were awful out of the middle. We felt like we were barely winning any clearances in the second quarter. None of the midfielders, sort of got on top at all. LDU did look a bit lazy today, and we'll go into some individual players who weren't as good after. But yeah, we weren't really winning anything out of the middle, and that's going to be our probably main strength this year. There was never anybody in support, like we sort of touched on before. It went back to that old school David Noble type football where it was like there's 4 Saints around and there's 1 North guy, and where are all of our supporting players? Where's the overlap handball? Where's the support to give you a Baylor, give you a Shepherd or something like that? It was just non-existent. It really, really felt like, middle of last season football from us. And just that the handballing and just inaccuracy in the handballing, it was just woeful. Like, I know that there's pressure and the Saints are a very grubby, gritty, lockdown defensive team, but we couldn't hit a target to save our lives. If any of those players in the second quarter on loose handball, they wouldn't even hit that little spinny wheel thing that moves around on the footy show. So they were my main negatives. I couldn't write
let's just talk about
the
elephant. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, okay? Jai Simpkin gets knocked out by Jimmy Webster. This is the second quarter. This is very early on in the second quarter. All really hard to watch. He was knocked out cold. Not only is he our captain, he is a very key part of our midfield, but he's a teammate. And I think that that was clearly quite shocking it was shocking for us in the stands, but I looked at you about 10 minutes after that happened and after the play, went on. And I said our inability to refocus after Simpkin left was probably what derailed that second quarter. There was I don't know how long it was. It was not long later into the second quarter where we had the ball, and I believe was it Zurhaar got stuck into Webster, and we had the ball, and then the free kick was reversed, and St Kilda ended up getting the ball.
Was that, or are you thinking about the Nick Larkey one where Nick Larkey marked it and then there was another free kick?
And then there was he marked it and then there was a reversal because Zurhaar got stuck into, I think it was Webster.
In the middle, I think. I have a
feeling something happened where it was reversed because there was quite a few times that second quarter where we were trying to rile up the St Kilda players. I get it. I get that you're trying to stick up for your teammate. Don't get me wrong. And I know that Paul Curtis was, straight in there after it happened. And, I do
Mm.
think it's really important for our players to stand up for teammate and captain in the moment. Don't get me wrong. But then switch back on. Like, it's time to refocus. We've got a game
Yeah.
here. And if this
Simkin
was,
was guilty of that
and
a little bit last year and the year before. Last couple of years, I feel like
and
Simkin's
I
been
think
sucked into that.
I do think it's really important to stick up for your teammate, and especially in the
Absolutely.
moment. And I really applaud the players for doing that. But if this was a home and away game, like, come on,
Yeah.
refocus. The entire second quarter, we were completely distracted,
Yeah.
and
There
all we
was
wanted to do
so
was
much feeling in it
was
though.
pick
Like
fights.
there was heaps. Yeah, I was about to say there was heaps of scuffles, fights, that sort of
That's
stuff going
great. So
on.
take that emotion and channel it into the game, because we
Yeah.
came back in that third quarter. And if it wasn't for that, and look, I don't know if we ran out of gas by the end of the day or whatever it was, but I reckon we could have won that game if that second quarter was
That was the
different. If we didn't
only
let it blow
quarter
out
we
like
got
that.
really done it. Yeah.
Exactly. And it reminds me, and again, I understand the circumstance. It's exactly the same thing that happened to Melbourne after Angus Brayshaw was knocked out by Maynard in the qualifier last year. I was
Yeah.
there, and you could literally see that all the Melbourne players were on another planet. They could not refocus for the rest of the game.
Mm.
They were completely distracted. All they cared about was getting stuck into Maynard. And that's a final, right?
Yeah.
So I just think I get it. I understand. I really do think it's important, like I said, for the players to stand up for Simpkin, no matter who it is, but in particular, it's your captain, is one of your best players.
Absolutely.
But for our inability to actually refocus, and it took until leaving the ground at halftime, whatever Clarko said in the rooms at halftime clearly worked. But I think we just kind of have to be a little bit better than that.
It's immaturity though as
Because
well. Like we're the youngest team in the league, and I think they learned that over time. I think the players that do give away those like silly frees, like Bailey Scott still is a younger player. I mean, Zurhaar should be maybe better than that, but also, is a bit of
that's
a
Cam
hot-headed as
Zurhaar.
well. That's Cam
Yeah.
Zurhaar. So, and look, and we love that they stick up for the players. I don't get it twisted at all. Like,
Yeah.
I want them
100%.
straight in there. I want them jumper punching him, not in a way that's going to get you suspended, but every player knows the line nowadays. So I agree with you. I think that really rattled us. Jai Simpkin is also a very calm head and decent ball user, especially, I know early on in his career, his ball use wasn't the best, but, I think he is obviously the leader and a cooling, calm head and voice on the field. And when we didn't have that, it definitely got out of hand a little bit and was a little bit irrational. How many weeks do you reckon? Just tip it.
Or between 6 to 8. I've been reading 10 on Twitter. I think that probably
Couldn't
that probably
imagine
feels
10.
a
It's a
little
disgusting
bit.
hit, and the
Yeah.
dude's a dog, but that's a lot of weeks.
I think probably somewhere. I think it's worse than the Powell Pepper incident.
Yeah, I agree. After I've watched it a few, I didn't initially think that at the ground, but we couldn't see it as easily there. We were sort of on the other side of the field, and the screen you couldn't see very much there. But I've watched it a couple of times since getting home, and
he's
it's
jumped
pretty
off the
bad.
ground. His
The way
intention was
Simpkins'
to
head
bump.
snaps back too.
So I reckon probably somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, I'd say 6. I think 6. I feel like the emotion wants me to say more, but realistically, I can't remember a time for a bump someone's been suspended that long for. So,
well, I think now is probably the time for the AFL to make a statement. And it's unfortunate for St Kilda, and if their player is the one that is made the example, and I do feel for them, but at the same time, he's chosen this action.
Yeah,
there's a lot of sensitivity around it after Powell Pepper, after Brayshaw's retired. I think there's a lot of discussion about this at the moment.
Like it's not okay in the preseason.
It's not okay at all, ever.
No, but preseason makes it way worse, where you're meant to have maybe slightly more duty of care in a practice game compared to the competitive nature of an actual game. It doesn't excuse it in any way, but the preseason is different to the season.
So yeah, I think it'd be, like I said, I feel for Saints fans, because that's going to be a shame if it's their player that's made an example of by the AFL. But on the flip side, if the AFL is, well, exactly, it's his decision, and if the AFL are serious about cracking down on this, then they're going to have to make a statement. So I think 6 to 8, but if it comes out it's 10, like a lot of people are suggesting, then
Mm.
Have at it. So be it.
True. I think the club did say that Jai is in good spirits and is okay. He's going to enter concussion
So,
protocol, but he's not.
well, I
We
don't think
don't
he'll
know for
play round
sure.
one now.
You don't reckon? Well, we don't play in round 0 though, so I think
We
he
don't
might.
play in round 0, but yeah, who knows?
I think it's
They
only
might.
10 days, isn't it? I'm not 100%
I
sure.
don't. Who knows? I mean, they might not risk it. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see how because it looked
Maybe.
pretty nasty.
Um,
So
the only positives I can draw out of this quarter to move on from the Jai thing was I think we had one really good fast transition from the back line, which ended up with a Zurhaar mark in the forward pocket. Fisher and Stevens and all the usual suspects linking up for that really, really quick transition. I think Darcy Tucker ended up on the wing getting an overlap handball, your man. And
my man.
Bull did kick a point though. So that was probably the only thing. I think this was the Lazaro quarter in a way, and not maybe not his best quarter overall, but what I mean by that is this is the one where I think I was like, oh yeah, Lazaro's playing well now. He didn't do too much in the first, but I think Lazaro was that's where he sort of
He played
announced
very
himself in
well
the game.
today.
Yeah, he was
Played
good,
very
but
well today, Charlie Lazaro.
he did, and I think he's maybe the only other positive that I can draw out of this quarter. Other than that, it was yuck, and I want to move on to the third quarter because I don't want to talk about it anymore.
No, let's go. I'm done with this quarter.
To finish off with the second quarter before I forget it for the rest of my life, the score was 8 goals 12 to 4 goals 2 at the end of it. So the Saints, we kicked 1, the Saints kicked 3, but the Saints kicked 10 points in that quarter, which looking back at it now, I didn't feel like they kicked 10 points, but they were really peppering the
No,
goals. So
really flattered us, I think, for sure.
I think so. But anyway, let's move on to pastures greener. The third quarter, much, much better. I don't know what Clarko said
good.
at halftime, but he did something and we became
Oh
a
my God, it
football
was
team.
so good. How good was it to like actually be excited about North Melbourne playing footy?
Yeah, I know.
So
yeah.
good.
We were hitting targets good. And our handballs weren't going to the ground and to players' feet. I've got one here. Like we were cutting off the ball on our half back line pretty well, and the Saints weren't really getting inside 50, very clean inside 50 entries. One thing I said to you guys after the game, I remember, was the Saints really didn't have great scoring shots. A lot of their goals were from long range and from the pockets that they were very good to kick. But you can see, they got a lot of opportunities, but how good were the opportunities? Not fantastic. And obviously, as we saw from probably the moment of the quarter with the Callum Coleman-Jones goal, you could probably kick it half the length of the field with how strong the breeze was. So some of the positives.
That goal.
Yeah. Talk about the goal.
That was the moment. That was the moment of the quarter, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
And it's really funny because Callum Coleman-Jones played terribly, okay? And I think I heard you say, I'm off him.
No.
Can you confirm?
Yeah, a little bit.
Don't lie.
He's been pretty rubbish in all of the games, and he dropped some absolute sitters today. Even from that one where LDU,
he was terrible.
This was the fourth quarter. LDU was in the pocket and handballed the ball over a player to him in the goal square, and it looks like he was trying to catch the ball with like oven mitts on.
Oh God,
embarrassing. He's been pretty rubbish. But he's
been horrific. But that goal, oh God, I mean, that will go down as one of the moments
for anyone who hasn't watched the game and is listening to this for some reason. He basically sent a torp. He grabbed it out of the
ruck in the center square.
Sent a torp straight down. It one bounced through the goals. The ball went probably 85 meters. It was
actually quite unbelievable. It was incredible. It was an incredible goal.
That was the first sign we got that the ball, or how much the wind had to affect the game. And there was a Saints player in the last quarter as well who basically took a shot from
Max
the wing.
King, I think it was.
Ben Brown was lining up again, but he didn't run for about 50 meters. He just kicked it off like 2 steps and it went like 75 meters. So that was wild.
Incredible.
I thought our defenders floating sort of in that like Jack Zeeble role from last year where he'd float into the pockets, the Josh Gibson role from the Hawks days. We did pretty well at cutting things off. Fisher and Goda were really good at doing that and then transitioning the ball off the half-back line.
And I thought Biggie actually played quite well today, but his third and fourth quarter,
Yeah.
he was great. He was
Yeah.
fantastic, and he really stepped up after halftime.
Yeah. No,
Grew
I
with
agree.
confidence, the
We
young
can,
man.
yeah, absolutely. Like Biggie, Biggie was solid. Biggie's mistakes, I think he did much more good than bad today. I watched the KO mini actually when I got home before we just did this podcast, and Biggie does have a mistake or two in him, absolutely. And I think his
As
mistakes,
every player will,
as
especially
every player
someone with
will,
such inexperience like he
his
has.
his stand out a lot more though. Do you know what I mean?
Mm,
Hang on 1 second here. I've closed the tab. There we go. Um, his stand out a little bit more than others, though. I think he makes
mm.
mistakes at slightly more crucial times. That's just a symptom of being in the back line. But he did really, really well today. He did some great marks, intercept marks. His disposal was pretty decent, apart from a couple of times. But he's young. He hasn't played much football. And yeah, I like him, and I think he might play around one, to be honest. But he was part of that back line that was holding up pretty well. The pressure was back as well.
Yeah.
And the thing that was back in the third, like it was the first, Dylan Stevens and Josh Goda, this is the quarter that they dominated. I think Dylan Stevens was our best in the first, but
Dylan Stevens was incredible.
those two in the third, I think, really carried us off half back and got the ball moving quickly. And we looked like we looked against Collingwood in the third quarter. Just to read out the scores, I mean, the Saints, and once again, I didn't know this even at the game until looking at it now. The Saints didn't kick a goal in the third quarter, so they kicked 2 points
really?
in the third, and we kicked 5 goals, 3 in the third.
Wow.
So we really dominated them.
Great effort.
And this was the biggest part. Like, you know, to find a needle in a haystack here, I guess that's a bad analogy, but we dominated them and they never got on top of us like we did to them in the third. Like they were better than us, I'd say, majority of the day. But when we turned it on in that third, they looked
unstoppable.
And we did look unstoppable. And we're going to have quarters like this. The amount of times we're going to see a second quarter to third quarter effort like we did today in the season is going to be outstandingly wild. And we're going to get so frustrated and then so happy in games this year. So get ready, North fans, for absolute roller coaster. But yeah, we really, really turned it on in that quarter. The only negatives I really think is the defense still did have some holes in it, but it didn't. We didn't get punished for it as much as we did because we were intercepting before they could get good shots at goal. This is the quarter where the umpiring really stood out to me, and I know everybody. And the free kick count at the end of the day wasn't actually too dissimilar. The Saints won it by maybe 3 or 4 free kicks, but some of the free kicks that we were giving or we were giving away were incredibly cheap. And I don't know if it was BYO refs down at RSEA Park today, but it's one of those ones like when we played Carlton last year in the Good Friday game where, you know, we got a similar amount of free kicks, but all of Carlton's free kicks were Charlie Curnow in the goal square and all of ours were
they were on
in
the
our
ground.
back pocket. And they just stood out in crucial moments. Like
context is important.
Yeah, we would get like a center clearance and all of a sudden there'd be a player blocking or something. And we're like, we've just won the ball and there was like a minor block. So the reffing, the umpiring really, really stood out to me in this one.
The one negative I have from the third quarter, and I think we probably masked it well because we obviously dominated the quarter. I still find we're quite stagnant, and I think this has been an issue for North for a really, really long time, and I feel like I've been saying it for years and years, but if we're going to be playing this like really hyper attacking brand of football, you know, we're going to be constantly moving and we're going to be constantly trying to push the ball forward and attack. We've got to be on the move all the time. We can't afford to have a guy take a mark, you know, 50, 60 meters out from the opposition's goal and he's got no one to kick to because everyone's just standing there still. I don't think we can really do this long down the line thing so much this year. I think we really need to chip it out safely so we can exit the team, the defensive 50. And then we really need to start, you know, running. We start moving the ball a little bit more by hand and sort of weaving our way through traffic. We're still way too stagnant. There was a couple of times in that, and it was quite obvious in the third quarter. And obviously, I know, like I said, we dominated the third quarter, but I found it most obvious in the third quarter, probably because we had so much of the play that for most of the time, you know, we were moving the ball forward really well and really, you know, quickly, but there were quite a few times where we were really stagnant and we're going long down the line and the
It's
ball
not
is
always
getting
easy
turned
for us
over.
to transition. I think one stat that I have written down here that I was going to share later, but it makes sense now. Between Jerry and Callum Coleman-Jones, there's 0 contested marks. And I think that's something that probably happened all of last season as well, except for that little purple patch of CCJ of like 4 games. We just don't take any contested marks. We never do. Like, do you remember a contested mark that wasn't like in the back line? I don't. So, you know, we never take contested marks in the forward line or midfield.
We also can't rely on Larky to be the one that's presenting up the ground because we need him to kick the goals.
Well, because he got it on half back a couple of times. He had to push up and get it off half back.
CCJ and Cherry aren't offering anything.
No.
You know, in the forward 50.
To caveat that though, I think Jerry was actually okay today. This isn't a Jerry
bashing. No, and
session.
it's not a Jerry. It's not a Jerry bashing. We both agreed. I think Jerry's ruck work was really good.
Yeah.
And you know, he actually dominated in the ruck, to be honest with you. But there's just no impact around the ground. And if we're playing him as a tap ruckman, and that is his game, then we're going to need a couple of other tools to step up that can, you know, push up the ground. And that was the one benefit with having Comben in the forward line.
Yes.
Comben is a lot more agile. Comben does have a great tank and, you know, he is, you know, his pressure's really good and his marking's really good. So he was a really reliable, you know, player to have, sort of playing that higher half forward, pushing up into the centre. It's like what Jared Waite used to be able to do. And I've likened the two of them, their game is really similar. So now that Comben's gone down back, we really need, be it CCJ.
We don't really have anybody, though.
We don't have. It's Hugh Greenwood. And I'm not going to sit here and make this all about Hugh Greenwood again. But that's the benefit of having someone like Greenwood there, is he does offer a little bit more than someone like a Coleman-Jones. Sherry. Sherry can ruck. And I think do I think he's a good footballer? Not particularly. Do I think he's a good ruckman? Yeah, he's fine in the ruck. And I think he played well today. And I'm not going to sit here and like just bash him for the sake of bashing him. But we aren't going to be able to get from him what around the ground, what we used to get from Goldstein and what we need from our other tools around the ground. So we need to look elsewhere. And CCJ just didn't cut it today.
No, and he hasn't cut it for a while, to be honest. So, yeah, I think I'm definitely very flat on CCJ, and I was really backing him to come and do what he showed in that patch before he got concussed.
The rose-coloured glasses are off.
Well, that's it. And look, I've always considered myself a fairly optimistic yet realistic supporter, and
you're not optimistic at all.
No, I think I'm
probably not compared to me, actually.
Well, you
probably not compared to me.
Yeah. That's true. You're too optimistic, but we balance each other out, mate. It's a good combination.
We do. It is a good marriage.
But absolutely, for till death do us part. But but I can't defend Callum Coleman-Jones anymore, to be honest. I still think there's something there, but he doesn't seem to be able to get any of what we know or have seen in glimpses out at all. He's had a pretty rough preseason, and do you think he starts round one? Do you think he starts? I know you're not going to tell me a team, but do you think do you think would I want that?
Do you think he will start round one?
I think he will start, but I wouldn't put him in the team.
Okay.
I've changed my tune on that.
I wouldn't either.
No, but all to be revealed, all that and more next week on the Further North podcast.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Watch out. Or maybe it'll be the week after, because I guess we don't play. I don't know. We'll do it before.
We'll figure it out
when we play. This is not something to decide now. This is awful podcasting. Well done, listeners, for sticking around for this. I mean, look, that's basically all there is to the third quarter. I mean, we just really put our mark on the game. We showed what we are capable of. And if we could ever do that for 4 quarters in a game, we might win the flag, but we're not there yet. So at the end of that quarter, what was it? Did we hit the lead? And no, we hit the lead.
No, we hit lead early in the fourth.
So 8-14. It doesn't tell me it doesn't add these up for me. I'm just reading it off the AFL app. 8 goals, 14 to the Saints, to 9 goals, 5 for North. So our accuracy in front of goal and goal conversion, I think it feels to me that we're one of the higher teams in the league. We just don't get all the opportunities. And I've got some stats to read out to you, May, that I think might surprise you from the game. But let's
Okay.
talk about the fourth quickly. I think one thing in the fourth, we did come out pretty hot, and then we did hit the lead. After that, we only got, I think, 7 or 8 points up was our highest lead.
Yeah,
Um,
we didn't, if that.
yeah, I think it was
I feel
seven.
like we only got a couple. Did we kick 2 goals in a row? I thought we only got 3 or 4 points up.
I think I read
I
somewhere
can't
the
remember.
highest we got was 7. But look, don't quote me on that. But I think the ball control was good. Something I seemed to notice in the fourth was maybe a little bit too early. We were trying to slow the ball movement down, but we were doing very well at sort of
Mm.
chipping it around the back line and keeping possession of the ball. Now, that did lack forward movement at times, but I think we kept possession of the ball much better in the fourth. And that seemed pretty strategic from me, in my point of view, anyway. I think. I don't know. The wind played a massive part in this game, and I feel like that's why we were trying to control the ball a little bit more, so we
I
didn't
really
run
want
and
to know
gun.
how much. I want to know how much the wind impacted that game
Well,
because it felt like it had a huge in like and we were speaking to Nikolaki after the game and he said that the wind was absolutely insane on ground level. And so you just really wonder how much of an
mm.
impact it actually really
well, we
did
had
play.
players who were having shots from, like, look at Dersma's shot after the siren. Like, that was about 35, 40 meters out, and I know he shanked it a bit, but he barely made the distance. Like, there was one. I can't remember which player it was, but we had a running shot, which was about from 40 meters out, and the ball didn't make the distance. It looked like it was going to sail through, and then it just like stopped in the breeze and dropped short. So we're in the stand where we were. The breeze didn't feel pretty super impactful, but looking at the trees and things like that, the trees were on a right angle. And yeah, by the looks of the ball, with players kicking it from the wing and the center square and basically making the distance, yeah, I think the wind had a massive part to play in the game, which advantaged the Saints a lot because once we did get the lead, the advantage was always going to be to the Saints with that breeze. And that's why we made the run with the breeze. They made the run with the breeze in the second. We made the run with the breeze in the third, and they ran over us in the end. And I think it's just another positive to take from that fourth is we just hit the front and we kept fighting and we did get back in front. Imagine like we did with the Saints last year. I think we mildly got back in front, which was great. There's other times against like the Bombers last year where we sort of just got in front, which is always positives to take. It's just holding those leads. And that's why it was interesting to me to see us take possession of the ball and control the ball more. And that might be a tactic that we try and go with. But I don't know. I think it's all good signs. And even though we didn't win the game, I'm really, really happy with how we played and what we're implementing. And it still makes me excited. I was so flat in that second quarter. And I'm like, maybe the hype that, North fans have after that Collingwood game is all just fake. But the way we came back in the set in the third quarter and played in the majority of the fourth, I'm really happy with, and it does make me excited. I don't think, we'll knock off maybe a couple of big teams. We'll maybe get a win against a top team this year, but it gives me confidence to go into games against teams that we can compete with, that we can win them now.
I think so too. And I also think like we won. I think people underestimate how important it was us winning that game against the Gold Coast in the last round last year. Because I think the momentum that's kind of pushed the club forward. We won that game. We obviously had Harry Sheezel win the Rising Star, and then Nick Larkey made the All Australian team, and then the women's team. They obviously made the grand final. They narrowly lost the game, and then
Clarkson coming
we
back too.
obviously have had Clark are coming back. The recruits we've been able to land at the club, McKercher and Dersma coming in along with other guys, obviously in the draft. And then we've been able to, the intra-club's been really good. And then we had that great win against Collingwood. And then we signed Tyler Sellers and he's been excellent. I kind of think this snowball effect that's happened ever since we won that last game, we've actually really been building up quite nicely. And to come back, and this is, we weren't at the Collingwood game, but to come back today and to watch. And the last game I went to was the Richmond game in round 22 last year. And the change in the side and in football is so glaringly obvious. And
Oh, it's
there's been a
massive.
huge change to that. The 23 that were out there today were chalk and cheese compared to what we had in that game against Richmond.
Yeah.
And we're just I feel like I've spoken about this before. We spoke about it on the podcast when we were talking about when we were doing our ladder prediction. I think the Giants and Collingwood have this incredible self-belief that no other team really has. And I think that that is something you actually really need to be able to win a premiership. And I think we're starting to believe in ourselves now. I think we're actually starting to believe that we're capable, to take it up to St Kilda the way we did today. And we were slaughtered in that second quarter. I mean, we were completely demolished. They had that many. Forget the goals. I mean, look how many scoring shots they had compared to us, right? To beat Collingwood, I just think the vibe at the club at the moment's, really, really positive. And I think that's kind of trickling down into the way we play. And it's so obvious how different we look from that game against Richmond. And then we won the week later into now. And I think that there is so much to be excited about. And I think that I can't wait for the season to start now because I just want to see this in action. Yeah. And I think we'll talk about individual players, but, you think about LDU today and you really wonder how different he's going to look come round one and how safe he's been playing, how safe he played it today as just one example of probably a couple of players we could name. I'm just really excited now. I can't wait. I'm so excited for the season to start.
I think that's sort of what I was trying to get at as well with saying North are one of, if not the most sort of excited / positive fan base right now, is we're seeing the change and we've seen how much it has changed, and it is a lower bar, absolutely. But, I would rather have, to a degree, don't take this with a grain of salt, but I'm comfortable enough having a lower bar, but being happy and excited than I would be being like a Bombers fan, expecting to make the finals and knowing every week you can win, but being super negative all the time. We've got the talent and potential in a couple of years to be above those mid-table teams anyway. So I think we just, as a fan base and the playing group, most of them anyway, seem to believe in where we're going. And Sheezel signing plus Larky and Simpkins shows that. But as a fan base, absolutely, we're all pretty excited. And, I, of course, wanted to win today, but the way we played is enough to make me happy. I care more about 2 to 3 years' time than I do about this season. My mentality towards this is a long-term goal. And I know some people share that, some people don't. But, I did say as well that if we finish 17th again, but won 7 games, I would still class that as a good season, because this year to me, ladder position doesn't really matter as long as we avoid the spoon. But if we double our wins plus some, I don't think it really matters. It just shows a massive step. And then next year, maybe we're out of the bottom 4. Then next year, we're like, we're 10th to 12th. Maybe we will push for finals. And then Wardlaw becomes a beast, wins a Brownlow, and we're in the finals and everyone's happy and Lucky wins a Coleman. So, it's trending upwards, and I'm all on board for the long journey with this because I'm starting to believe it'll pay off to whatever degree. If that's premiership, if that's just competing in finals, if that's just loving going and watching this team play football, whatever capacity it is, I'm on board.
I agree and disagree. Today it's a practice game, so it is what it is. If this was in season, I wouldn't accept us losing a game like this. I think we had it, and we really probably should have finished the job off, to be honest. I think it was winnable. We're up, in the early in the 4th. But I do agree. The trend is going up, and I think there's so much to be excited about. I still think we should be going in every week thinking that we should and can win. That, I think, a winning mindset builds, leads to wins, which builds a winning culture with which will eventually see us move up the ladder. So while I had a lot of fun today, and obviously it was great to, footy's back, sun was shining. It was a really, really entertaining preseason game. I would have liked us to win. Not so stressed about the result being a preseason game, but I think that we really need to start taking our opportunities. And I think today was a big opportunity. If this was, again, in season, it's something that I really would expect us to put the pedal down and take home those 4 points. But in saying that, take it with what it was today and take the scenario for what it was. It was so much fun. And it was, we obviously had some massive, massive performances by individual players that is enough to get me excited for the season to start.
I think if this game was against, say, the Hawks, I would be more disappointed not getting the win. But, once again, this is my realistic brain, maybe compared to a slightly more nuffy brain like yourself, Marnie, which I want to be like that one day. But I feel like, it's just how my brain operates with sports is like, if we were playing the Hawks today in the preseason and we were up in the fourth and we lose like we did, I would be frustrated. But competing against a team like the Saints who made the finals, I don't think they'll make the finals again, but should be making finals with the talent they've got or the expectation. I'm kind of like, they're not the teams we need to beat now. And I know some fans will be screaming at me with this. And, this is just the way I think. So, and if people differ, that's completely fine. But as an example, GWS, I don't really expect to win the first round. As long as we put in like a good showing and show that we can compete, I'm happy. And that will make me personally going to Freo going, we're going to win this game today. I don't think the players should have that mindset, by the way. That's not the mindset I want any player to have. Every player should go, they're going, we're going to destroy these guys today. But I also don't get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to play football. I just have to watch it and talk about it on the internet every single week. So, look, that's how my brain works with sports. If you hate it, that's cool. I understand. Marnie's your gal then if you want blind optimism. And if you want back down to reality negativity, as she calls it, I'm your guy. So.
Yeah, everyone wants to be on the Delulu North Melbourne train with me, I think, for sure.
All right, you bunch of realists, get over my side of the fence. I'd do a poll saying whose side are you on, Josh or Marnie's, but there's no chance I'm winning that. Okay, there's some stats and some talking points which we can talk about from the game, which I'll throw to you now, and then we'll do some individual players. So,
great.
Some stats. 53. We had 53 inside 50s. Our inside 50 percentage of efficiency was 34%, which is incredibly low. And you can sort of see that from, 53 inside 50s, and we only scored, I don't know, what was the final score in the end? We kicked 10 goals. We had 15 scores from 53 entries. And I think that's incredibly low. So,
that's
as much
a problem we've had for a while as well.
100%. And it's
our
one lack of options.
Inside 50 is terrible.
But also because we are, on a bad team, I guess, for lack of a better word, we're not getting 3-4 goals a game just from contested marks. So we need to have space to operate and to be able to hit the player's chest. So that'll come with time, I would hope. But
there were definitely a few marks there that weren't called marks, though, which is also very frustrating.
And look, Dersmith's athleticism really shines through. And if he can start, it's probably a couple of years away from being able to take proper contested marks, but his leap and some of the mark attempts he had, and he stuck some really good ones today. That gives me hope for somebody. Bull, maybe not the most athletic, as in like a vertical sense. I don't see him jumping on people's heads. Obviously, his physicality is his strength, but I really hope that he can start taking some marks as well, because they're sort of the only two. Because we know CCJ and Jerry will not take those. Here's a good stat. Speaking of Tristan Jerry, 34 to 14 hitouts. We won the hitouts. 39 to 14. Sorry.
Yeah.
We won the
hitouts.
He
dominated the ruck. And that's what we spoke. We just touched on that before. His work in the ruck has been exceptional so far this year. And I'm actually really interested to see how he goes like on the big stage now.
One of the things to maybe slightly dampen that. Yes, absolutely. And I've been the biggest anti-Jerry bloke out. We all know that.
Yeah, we both have, definitely.
I'm all on board for any player like your love for Aiden Core turning it around. And I'm starting to get on board with Tristan Jerry with the helmet on. Now, if he takes that helmet off, Jerry. If he goes into round one with no helmet, I'm very concerned. But he's been solid. His ruck work is good. Around the ground, needs to improve massively. But he's had a fairly solid preseason. He's a bit of a preseason specialist. But if he can bring this in the games, I'll be happy enough with Jerry. I just don't want him dropping marks all over the field. 39 to 14 hitouts he won. But each team had 29 clearances, center clearances. So... he's dominating the hitouts, but it's not transitioning into us having dominant center clearances, which I think is an issue. And if that's the midfielder's fault or Jerry's fault, I don't know exactly. I'm no ruck coach. But, you would think and hope if we have 4 times the amount of, or three and a bit times the amount of hitouts, we would want to be not dominating, but we'd want to be up on these center clearances. So that's something to work on.
I think so too. I wonder how much of that was Simkin going down and not
Possibly
being
as
in
well,
that
but when you've
middle.
got Powell, LDU, Wardlaw, Phillips played a decent enough game. We've got another Phillips stat actually, which I was very surprised with. We've got enough quality in our midfield, I think, to make up
That's
for
true.
no Simpkin.
Yeah.
But we did win the stoppage clearances around the ground, 22-15. So that is a good stat to go off, with Jerry racking majority of those. I think around the ground, we seem a lot better than we do maybe straight out of the center square. Here's a negative one. 85 to 114 marks. We lost that marking battle. We're just not getting marks around the ground. We had many more. I don't know the exact number, but we got many more handballs than them around the ground. So clearly we're trying to run and gun with handball. But at the end of the day,
we do need to control the ball a little bit better.
Yes, 100%.
Especially because we've obviously got that defensive issue there.
Yeah, and then the last stat with the marks is we lost the contested marks, like we seem to do every week, 8-14. So it's not a massive disparity, but it's still 8
not
more
great,
contested
though.
Marks, which contested
especially
marks,
in the forward 50.
Yeah, and I don't know where on the ground they were, but it means in a 50-50 chance, we didn't win that battle. So not good. Here's another one. Here's a good one. Tackles inside the forward 50. We won 10-3, which is a very, very good stat.
That's a really good sign. That would have been majority in the third quarter, though. I feel like the ball was walked out of our
But the
forward line
Saints
in the
didn't even
second
have
quarter
one
easily.
inside 50 tackle a quarter as well. So they got 3 for the whole game, according to AFL website. So,
so that's good.
Yeah, we had more than 2 a quarter. So we really dominated them in that aspect. And that's one thing, even though we'll come to Paul Curtis, who didn't affect the game offensively too much. But in that Collingwood game, he was a monster and his forward 50 pressure. And I think he brought that again today. Didn't get any results on the scoreboard and didn't affect the game offensively very, very much. But I've been impressed with his forward 50 pressure, especially against Collingwood, but today as well. I've already said that one actually about the contested marks with Jerry and CCJ. Here's the last one. Will Phillips had the most clearances for our team, and he got subbed on. He had 5 center clearances, which was the most on the ground, besides Tristan Jerry. Now, I don't count ruck center clearances. That's more of a hack kick out of the ruck. Jerry had 8 clearances, but we're not taking ruckman clearance. You're not Todd Goldstein. No. You're not Goldie clearances.
That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah, Phillips being I didn't think Will Phillips had a great game. I don't think he was bad, but I think he had a bit of a game.
Quiet achiever.
Yeah, a quiet achiever, but according to his stats anyway, because he did get the most center clearances for us and he didn't play a quarter and a half of football. So, that's something else, which I thought was incredibly interesting, because I wouldn't have thought he had that effect on the game. And I do find that going to the football compared to watching it on TV gets you a very different experience. When I watched the mini back, there was like Colby McKercher. Here's a good example. I thought Colby McKercher was fine today. I don't think he stood out. I don't think he was bad. I think he made good decisions. He got about 17 touches. He was decent enough, but not a standout like the first game. Watching him on the replay when I got home looked to impact the ball a lot more than I could tell from the stands, I guess, because we don't get the close-up shots. So maybe that's a Will Phillips thing as well, where he's not going to be the guy, on the outside or running with the ball, taking a bounce, so we don't notice it as much. But, just like last year, that in and under work seems to be pretty good from him, and 5 clearances, most on the ground, while missing a quarter and a bit. Really surprised me that he had the most clearances, because I definitely wouldn't have called that. So there's a few hot stats. A couple we'll touch on here as well. A couple of other, not stats, but talking points. Bailey Scott played a lot off halfback today. Don't know how I feel about that personally, but he wasn't always there, but he did play a decent amount back there. It does seem like they're sort of rotating. You look at our back line and we don't really have a small or a medium to small defender that's good defensively, really. Like, I think Goda's okay defensively, but they're definitely offensive talents with McKercher, Sheezel, Fisher, and Bailey Scott pushing down there as well. Our real defensive options are our talls. So it's really interesting to see him sort of playing in the back line and manning up on someone in that forward 50. Oh, sorry, back 50 for us, but then pushing forward and getting involved in the play. So, you know, very, very
I
interesting, I
thought he
think.
was okay today. I thought he was a bit fumbly, which I said earlier.
A
I didn't
little
think he
bit.
was
I
his
mean,
clean, poised self.
yeah, he can definitely be better, but that's because he set the bar quite high. I think he was pretty good today. I think he was, I'd give him a 7 out of 10 for today's performance. There was definitely moments where he could have been cleaner, but I think he got 30 touches or so, 30 plus maybe, or near
Yeah,
30
he saw a
touches.
lot of the ball.
So
He
you're
did
always
see a
going to
lot of
have
the
a few
ball.
when you're around the ball that much. And him and Dylan Stevens really do go hand in hand on those wings or halfback, whatever you want to say, in that midfield area where they can run all
Yeah,
day. So they're going to get
yeah,
heaps of touches. And I don't know, they're always going to be around the ball. So I guess they stand out more than like a Will
that's true.
Phillips does as well.
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay, to end on, before we talk about the live podcast, actually, individual players. Let's talk about some individuals. So I've got some names here, and I'll read them out to you, and you just let me know what you thought. Pretty simple.
See,
I think Dylan Stevens was arguably, for me, best on ground. Goda was a close one there, and so was Fisher. But Dylan
yeah.
Stevens takes it for me. Dylan Stevens had 8 inside 50s today, which was the most for our team. And I think that just shows how much he's going to drive this team forward, you know.
He
Yeah, you go.
No, he's an excellent footballer. And I do agree with you. I think he was probably our best with Goda and Fisher. I'd have the three of them as probably our best.
Yeah.
And then one other who I'm sure we'll speak about, because you won't go a podcast without talking about him.
Whoever could
Uh,
it be?
who knows?
Hugh Greenwood.
Yeah, so no, that's my guy.
Oh, sorry. I get so confused.
Um, yeah, he was excellent today. I think he just adds that extra layer of class. And he's an excellent user of the football, which is something we haven't really had for a long time. So
Yeah.
it's very refreshing when you can actually get the ball in his hands and you really trust him to execute it every single time.
Yeah. We've now
Um,
got guys that like, you know, Sheezel last year, if he had the ball, I'm like, it's fine. Everything's fine. Other than that,
yeah,
even like LDU, Wardlaw, those guys, you know, I'm still not 100% like, yeah, they're definitely going to hit a target here, but Sheezel was probably the only one I can fully say that I was confident with. Now having,
yeah.
Stevens there, Fisher, I would put in that category as well. Sheezel, we're getting better ball users, and I think that's really
Mhm.
starting to show with the transition. So,
Yeah,
Stevens was fantastic.
yeah, I
Josh
agree.
Goda, you love the goat man today. You speak about
I
him.
was all over him today. Yeah, I
Mm.
thought he was excellent. I touched on it before. I think he really filled that Luke McDonald role really, really well.
Yeah, yeah,
He was everywhere. We didn't really take too many marks, but I felt like he was marking everything. He was also pushing up the ground a little bit. He floated forward, kicked a goal. He was everywhere. And I said to you, I think that you said you reckon it's one of Bergman or Goda, and I said, well, up until today I probably would have had Bergman in the side just based on the games they played last year. But after today, what is going on with
Oh,
these
oh my
effects?
God. Sorry, guys. For those who are listening, Marnie's just had a bunch of balloons pop up in front of her Zoom chat, and I'm not sure what's going on. The Zoom chat loves Josh Goda. The chat loves Josh Goda's game today.
Sorry, those who aren't watching the Zoom. Yeah, anyway, we move on.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have probably had Bergman in front of Goddard just based on, like I said, last year's performances up until this point. But I have to say, I feel like Goddard, and we don't know if McDonald will play round one, so I'd probably almost lock Goddard in for that game against the Giants in round one. I thought he was outstanding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're right on the Bergman Goda thing. I think this preseason it's been Goda, and I don't think it's super close. I think Bergman's been okay, and I just actually read a little match report for the VFL before they've just released it, so I can have a look and give you some notes if you like. But Bergman was apparently very, very good in the twos. Charlie Comben apparently took a hanger in the fourth quarter, and
How have you missed it?
I need some footage of that because we had to leave before the end of the game. But anyway, look, let's not focus on the VFL right now. Eddie Ford kicked 4 in the VFL, by the way. Um,
Mm.
Zach Fisher,
More than Paul
arguably,
Curtis.
yeah, arguably best on ground. 36 touches going at 80% disposal efficiency.
White hot. White hot.
Yeah. Dylan Stevens and Zach Fisher. What fantastic recruiting. I don't know. These guys have
Incredible.
not set a foot wrong so far. And like we said before, they've unlocked a different style of game plan for us. So, yeah, once again, arguably best on ground, but probably the most consistent all day, maybe from first quarter to last.
I agree with you for sure.
Yeah, and he was popping up sort of half forward area as well.
Yeah.
He looks like he's got a bit of a tank.
He does. And I think that is one of the things that we spoke about when, he was drafted. He does have the ability to swing. He's an incredibly versatile player. And I think that he'll be able to fill that hole up, down back or up forward where we need. So, yeah, I think he was outstanding again today. And I think that he will be a great asset to the side with that versatility in his game throughout the year.
Now, Marnie, this is a very important one. It's George Wardlaw.
The barometer.
I love George. Now, George Wardlaw, is he the best player of all time? Probably, I think. And he had
no bias,
12,
right?
No. That's just
no
a fact.
Bias.
No. No. I love George Wardlaw. And George Wardlaw had 12 tackles today. Now, some of the tackles that man laid today, I think Dustin Martin would be scared of them. I genuinely think his attack on the ball is wild. He's an animal.
I was almost out of my seat at one point. I was that excited
because he tackled someone. I think this was in the third. I feel like it was. He tackled someone on the wing. They disposed of the ball, and he jumped off the guy who was tackling and jumped onto the other guy and ripped him to the ground. And he wraps them up with his legs as well. And I love that. He's just like, what an animal. I love George Wardlaw.
What a player.
Number one podcast fan, George Wardlaw, actually. And
yes,
George, this is a call out. My DMs are always
if you're
open.
listening.
Please. Marnie's going to take the reins if we ever get George on the podcast because I won't be able to keep myself together. I love George Wardlaw. I can't wait to get down to the Roo shop and slap number 6 on my back. And it's going to be there for the rest of my life because George Wardlaw is my favorite player. And I just want him to know that because I'm starting to get all choked up and embarrassed. So Marnie, please.
Well, he does know that. He does know that. For those who are wondering the context behind that, I saw George Wardlaw on Saturday at Family Day and he told me that he loves the pod and he listens to the pod. So George, we know you're listening. Hi, George. We love you. So exciting. And, there's everyone. There is so much hype around this man. And it's not hard to see why. 100%. And he after that tackling masterclass where he jumped from the one player to the other, I looked at you and I said, this man's the barometer. He lifts and the whole team lifts. And we saw that last season and it's incredible the amount of influence and impact a guy who's so young and has played so few games has on this side. I think he is going to be the key to a lot of our success this season as well.
I agree. You want to know something crazy that I'm not trying to put a negative on George at all. How many disposals do you reckon he got today?
Maybe not even 15.
He got 10 disposals, which is pretty wild. No, but this is what I was about to say is his 10 disposals are like some bloke getting 20, another guy getting 20. Everything around.
He doesn't need a lot of the ball.
He gets 10 disposals and they're 10 effective or game-changing disposals. He tackles like there's no tomorrow. His contested ball work is elite. I don't know. I love George and I am going to be biased to George Wardlaw my entire podcast.
Well, I think we all will. But I think we all will because I think that it's that passion and intent which is so hard to find.
He just plays the way that I love. You want your players at your footy club to play. He plays like he really cares and he's really invested.
With passion. Yeah. And I think the more experience he gets, the better he'll get. And I think that's something really important to remember. Yes, okay, he's had only had the 10 touches for the day. You feel like he's had a much bigger impact because he's had a massive physical presence. He's laid 12 tackles. He's been in everything. So give him another 20, 30, 40 games and he'll probably be able
Yeah.
to add more and more and
Imagine the
more.
day that 10 touches with that sort of effect on the game turns into 30. Like that's a
Yeah,
terrifying
it's
thing for
insane.
the
And that
rest of
will
the league.
happen. It will
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
happen. Just got
Um,
to give it some time.
as much as I'd like to talk about George Wardlaw for the rest of the podcast, but that'll be my dreams tonight. Charlie Lazaro. I think Charlie Lazaro had another really, really solid game.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, obviously, I think he had about 20 disposals, roughly, maybe slightly more or less, but maybe not quite as a bigger effect on the game as a George. But I don't know. Around the ball, he seems to be the guy that, like a Will Phillips, will pick up the ball, handball it to him, and he's pretty good at wriggling out of danger. I think he's a
Yeah.
lock for round one. I absolutely think he is, and I think he's earned it
I
and
think he is
deserved it.
too. I think he
If
is too. I think.
Mhm.
No, you go.
Okay, thank you, Marnie. What a rare moment. Wow. I think that felt targeted. That felt mean to say. No, I think if we were going to rank, Lazaro, Powell, Phillips, who are sort of fighting for those next spots, I think Lazaro might have been the most impressive to me in the preseason. I think Powell is looking very, very good, and I think Powell will get in the round one team, but I think Charlie Lazaro is more of a lock. What's with North Melbourne with old school names? We've got Charlies and Georges all over the place. It's wild. It's like it's like we're in 1940 right now, but they're all fantastic.
Maybe in the 70s, that'd be better, wouldn't it?
Maybe that's true. I didn't discriminate on date too much there,
I think I do agree with you. I think he should play round one, Charlie Lazaro, and it's I've said this quite a few times over the past few months. It's because he's getting the opportunity in the midfield now that he hasn't had before. Play him in the midfield. He is a midfielder. He isn't obviously as versatile, where he can fill other holes and other roles, which we've seen him attempt and fail to do in the past few seasons. I think he's doing enough now that people are actually taking notice of him as well. Now, that does come with some bad. He did have a few turnovers today, but again, he's also still really young. Like, he doesn't have the same experience that, he's been on the list for a few years now, but he's only played a handful of games as well. So, and a handful of games in the midfield. So I think that's really important to remember as well. I think all three players have put in as in Powell, Lazaro, Phillips. I think all three of them have put in enough work to suggest they should all be in that round one side, at least
Phillips is a little bit
for it.
50-50 for me personally. I think he's maybe just done enough, but I think Phillips could have definitely done. Look, his clearances today, like we spoke about, a really, really good job on, not playing the first quarter and a bit until Jai unfortunately went down, but. I think I wanted a little bit more from Phillips in this preseason. I think I wanted him to step up above those two and be the next. He's as a number 3 pick. You really want him doing that.
You expect him to do that.
Absolutely. So I think I definitely wanted more from him, but I don't think if he's in the round one team, he hasn't earned his spot at all.
I agree with you. And I'm in two minds about it because I used to be really hard on LDU and he just needed a bit of time to develop and now look at the player that he is, right? But I think the thing for Phillips is that you've got Sheezel, Wardlaw, McKercher and Duursma, and all four of them have basically had immediate impact.
Yeah.
So you've got them and then you've got Phillips, and I know he was out for the year, whenever it was, a couple of seasons ago with glandular. And last year was probably his first proper whack at it, and he was kind of in and out of the side.
He's the COVID draft class too, right? Which I think
hasn't
been a massively successful draft class.
But I think there's that extra pressure on him, whether it's necessary, unnecessary, whatever it is. I think that probably doesn't help his case at all, to be honest. So I'm really hoping that he can break into the side and play because I think he's got enough talent that he really should be able to. And
I think him embracing that in and under role is going to be the thing to get him in because it differentiates him compared to a Lazaro or Powell, who I think can be quite similar. LDU, maybe isn't the contested beast, yes, in the way that he can break contact and skip away from danger, but I don't think he's going to be the guy like a Cunnington or a George that is going to be down on his hands and knees ripping that ball out for people. So anyway, this is diverted from Charles Lazaro chat, but well done, Charles Lazaro. You played very well, and I hope to see you in the round one team.
Definitely.
Here's one that I think the fans will be contentious on. Biggie Nguyen. I think Biggie was really solid today, and like we sort of pointed out
I thought he was great.
Yeah, his bad disposals, I think, do stand, sort of like Jaden Stevenson in a way. The things he does that are bad, I think, stand out a lot. But I think there is more good than bad there. Obviously, very inexperienced and young player, but the athleticism, the marking ability is there. I think his ability at to dispose of the ball is okay. I think it's just the decision making sometimes that needs to work on, but that comes with maturity and age. So I think Biggie was really good today. I
thought he was too.
I think he plays round one, and I don't think any of our defenders were bad today. I'm going to caveat this, and to put this in one discussion so we can talk about it now. I thought Callan Dawson was very good today too, and Callan Dawson seems to be someone that everyone thinks I'm not high on, and I don't know. I didn't
because you're not high on him.
No, I didn't.
You're the anti-Callan Dawson guy.
No, I'm not anti-Callan Dawson.
Yes,
I like Callan Dawson. I think he's going to be good this season. My opinion started from the game last year where everyone thought he was good and I didn't see it. I don't think he had a good game. I don't think he was bad, but I think he was just like a 5 out of 10 game against the Gold Coast. He got some spoils. He did some okay things, but I don't think he stood out in that Gold Coast game like everyone did for some reason. The preseason, I've been very impressed. Intra-club game, yeah, he was okay, sort of like that Gold Coast game. The Collingwood game, I was like, okay, here we go. I can see a bit from him. And today I thought he was good. People have sort of messaged me and said, stop hating on Callan Dawson. And I'm like, I'm not hating on Callan Dawson.
Yeah, stop hating on Callan Dawson, Josh.
No, stop it, Marnie. Don't make people message me still. It's very scary.
Guys, tell Josh to stop hating on Callan Dawson.
I'm not hating on Callan Dawson. I just didn't see it. And I think other people were sort of making it up in their head to believe that this guy can, because we were so desperate for key defenders. I think people were sort of trying to believe that he was maybe slightly better than he had been to that point. But in the preseason, he's done enough work, almost like a Tristan Jerry, to make me go, he can do something here. And I've really liked what I've seen from him. So I think Callan Dawson is obviously a lock for round one. If you're asking me, as an example, we've got a dilemma here. We've got, does Comben or Core play, who I would prefer in those positions to most of those guys if I had to pick. I'd say for round one, are we going to play Biggie, Pink, and Dawson? Probably. But let's say a Core, or we'll go Core because he's the most experienced. Say Core can come back into the team. Who goes out? Yeah. Is it Biggie or is it Toby Pink? Because I don't think Dawson will. For me, Biggie plays, Pink doesn't. I think Pink was decent today as well. Took some good intercept marks. Is definitely the one I would like to have in a one-on-one contest. But I think his inexperience at AFL level, even training at AFL level, did show a little bit. And I don't for one second think he was bad at all. I think he was pretty decent. But we have to make a tough decision from those three. I think I'd rather Biggie play over Pink.
I think that the difference between Biggie and Pink today was that Pink, I think both of them played quite well.
Yep,
I agree with you. I think all three of them played quite well. I think that Biggie worked into the game. He had a bit of a slow start and then kind of hit his straps in the second half.
His intercepting is good, and I think we need that more than, I think Dawson, Pink, those guys sort of played a similar role in like a key defensive role, but Biggie was doing more intercepting, and I think that really helped us.
But I think Pink has that ability, and as a one-on-one defender, I think that's something we really need. I think that Pink played all 4 quarters better than Biggie did.
Yeah,
I think Biggie was I think Biggie was more of a tale of two halves. I think he definitely stood out in the second half for me. I didn't really take much notice of him in the first half, but in the second half, he did things that made me really stand up and really notice him. So on that, I would play Pink over Biggie. However, I think, but I don't think that either of them stood out way more than the other. I think Callan Dawson plays. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And I think with Callan Dawson, I think the sample size we had was way too small to make a judgment suggest he was really good or really bad. I just think that what we saw from Callan Dawson up until the point, while it was small, I think it was really promising. And I think that's what people just wanted to see him have a chance.
Yeah.
I think in the back half of 2022, he played 4 or 5 games and he was really good and he barely put a foot wrong. So the fact that he didn't get a game all of last season until that Gold Coast game, and he did enough for people. And I was one of them. I was like, why hasn't this guy been playing all season? Considering Griffin Logue was out from halfway through the year and Mackay was in and out of the side. Now, Core did step up in the second half of last year. And obviously, he's really solidified himself in that back line. And he's probably going to be the master and the maestro of the back line when he comes back in, at least until Griff is back and fit and ready to play. So I think it's an interesting discussion. I don't think there's a right answer here, though. Like, I don't think if they pick, and I have no issue with whatever the combination is that they put together at this stage. I think Dawson probably is the standout of the group, but if they'd opted for the other two over Dawson, I wouldn't even be mad at that, to be honest. I don't think there's a right answer in this. I think they all are kind of quite equal at the moment.
No, I agree. I think once again, Biggie edges it over Pink to me, but I think they play very different roles. Like Biggie, I don't think is ever going to be that one-on-one defender, but I don't think Pink is going to be that like intercepting, slightly more athletic defender. I think they contrast each other well, but is there room for all of these tall guys in the back line? I think that's for a much more experienced football mind to work out than me. The last positive to touch on is Zane Dersma, I would say.
Yes.
Maybe didn't impact the game for all 4 quarters, but the times he was around the ball, I think his vertical leap and marking ability stood out to me, except for the last kick of the game. He looks like a pretty decent shot at goal. I just like the excitement from him and his athletic ability, and he's definitely taking mark of the year in his career at some point.
He's hungry. He's really, really hungry. And I think his enthusiasm really shows through his football. I'm a big Zane Dersma fan. After seeing him today, I thought he was great.
Yeah.
I think that, like I just said, the enthusiasm here, really approaches every single contest hungry. He's sort of, going for that second, third, fourth efforts. I think we've definitely found a player in him, no doubt.
Let's go to a couple of players I've put under I wanted more from them. Not trying to be too negative, and we will keep it as positive as possible, and constructive criticism, of course, from our very lack of football ability and minds. But here's a few players that I didn't think I wanted a little bit more from. I didn't think stood out too much on the day. LDU definitely on the day looked like he was in second gear the whole time. I don't think he's going to play like that in round 1. I think he's that good of a player. He'll be like, it's round 1 now. Let's just get 35 touches and get 3 Brownlow votes. But I can only judge off the game today, and he was
disappointing.
Lackluster. He didn't look like he was trying super hard. There was lots of times he could have put contact on, could have chased a bit harder, and that sort of stuff. I hope it's because he is saving himself for round 1 and is going to tear the league apart. But just on his game today, definitely didn't try super hard. And you could definitely tell from his body language he was on the park just to get fit and make sure he's safe for round 1. So would you agree with that analysis of him?
Yeah, I think he was he was quite disappointing. But I do really hope that, it's just a preseason thing.
Yeah. Cam Zurhaar for me did kick a couple of goals, and I think the moments that he was around the ball, he sort of created his own opportunities. I think I'd like to see him affect the game more. I mean, once again, no midfield minutes for Zurhaar. I guess we've got so many options there. When does he get in the midfield? But, as an example, in that second quarter, when we are getting belted and we weren't winning anything in the center square, throw a Zurhaar in there and see what happens.
Yeah,
I think that's
body.
something, we could have definitely done. He's playing all of his minutes down forward, and there's definitely times in the game where he was just really not involved. I'm definitely a little bit skeptical of him in front of goals sometimes, even though he did kick a nice one in the breeze from the pocket, and he had his couple of goals today. From his game, the intra-club and the Pies game to this game, I think it's sort of what we've seen from Zurhaar a lot of the time, where there are inconsistency. I don't think it was bad today. Once again, kicked 2 goals, 1 point. When he was around the ball, his tackling and pressure was very, very good. But
then he had quite a few He had quite a few kicks smothered.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Not the
and
best
like
disposal
it's
sometimes as well.
no, and it's like I touched on at the top of the show when we were talking about his contract. I think he has as much to prove to the club as the club has to prove to him at this stage.
Yeah.
I thought he was okay today, but I do agree with you. I think we don't have a solid second forward to Larky at this stage. That
Yeah.
is still up for grabs, and there's no reason why it can't be a mid-sized forward like a Dersma or a Zurhaar.
Yeah.
I think Zurhaar, with his experience and with his physical presence, he should be able to step up into that role.
And he should be the
And
one to take that opportunity with what he's done in the past.
100%. And I think that 2 goals is an okay return, but I think someone like him, we should definitely be able to expect 3 goals
Yeah.
plus from him week in
Sometimes
week
I
for
feel
the most
like,
part.
when he's not in the game, I'd like him to like push up to halfback or something and just get himself involved. How many
Keep him
times today?
involved, yeah.
Yeah, how many times today do we see Larky at halfback and we're like, we don't want you down there, mate, but he had to go down there
Yeah.
to help and do something. Zurhaar, I'd like to see him get himself involved in the game if he realizes he hasn't done too much. So
Yeah,
anyway,
definitely.
not a bad game and not a Zurhaar criticism. Just I would have liked to see a bit more from Cam Zurhaar because we know what he is capable of.
Yeah, definitely.
Paul Curtis, this is one I know you were very passionate about, but
rubbish.
pretty poor today. I think his game against the Pies was fantastic. And like Zurhaar, I think he's incredibly hot and cold. I'm definitely backing Paul Curtis for a massive year, though. I did say in the live pod that I think he might be the second highest goal scorer for us besides Larky this year, and I stand by that. But I think his defensive pressure in the forward 50 was fantastic. Always creates a contest, always tackles hard, always chases. But getting himself involved in the game, getting opportunities at goal and disposal wasn't very good today at all. And I did definitely have moments in the game where and when he was around the ball, I was like, oh yeah, I haven't seen him for a long time. So
We're missing in action.
Yeah,
Completely
I'm not
missing in
maybe
action.
quite as like critical of him as you are, but poor game, absolutely, and want more, but I expect him to be able to do more once the season's on.
I think that Eddie Ford kicking 4 goals and I know it was just a reserves game, but Eddie Ford kicking 4 goals in the reserves probably doesn't help Curtis's case.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
I just think again, it's the want for more, and I don't want to downplay the defensive part. I think in a team, I think it is so important for forwards to have that defensive element in that game. It's what makes them so dangerous. But like he wasn't even creating opportunities on the back of his pressure. It was just it was pressure. It just kind of didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, pressure until it left the 50 anyway.
It just didn't. He just for me, he did not really have any impact on the game.
I'd agree.
To be honest with you, and I think that you look at someone like George Wardlaw. We just touched on. He only had the 10 touches, but his presence was mammoth throughout the whole game. Paul Curtis was probably the opposite. Like there was some defensive pressure. Maybe he did a couple of nice things, but I was not.
But we
impressed.
know, and I'm only critical on Paul Curtis because I think for this game specifically, because I know and I really back him to have a monster year, 3rd year in now, and it's time for him to really cement his spot in this team. He can play that small forward role. I know he's good. He's good in the air and above the head. He's a pretty solid unit too. So yeah, I back Paul Curtis and I hope he's in round 1 and. I wouldn't be thinking about dropping him personally, but capable of more, not fantastic today, but the intra-club game and the game against Collingwood, I thought he was fantastic in. So I think he's had a decent preseason. Another one we can throw into this ring, which I think you might disagree on, Jaden Stevenson for me was around the football a lot, but fairly ineffective with what he did around the football. There was many times he'd get the ball on the wing and try to link up, but would get tackled or the handball didn't go directly to the player. I don't think he had a shot at goal, or maybe it was one in the first quarter. Actually, I feel like he kicked a point, but Yeah, and he doesn't really bring that defensive side of the game as well. He's good at pushing up the ground to get the ball if he isn't
Yeah.
impacting up in the forward 50. And his work rate is something actually last season that I really praised a lot. And I think his work, there'd be many
Yeah.
times where I'd see him at half back trying to get
I
the
think
ball.
he's got
So
a good work rate for
yeah,
sure.
credit to Steve-O for that. But just today, I definitely wanted more from him because I think he's had a solid preseason as well. But yeah, Curtis, if we're asking more from Curtis, Zurhaar, and Steve-O, clearly our forward line only kicking 9 goals or whatever with 53 entries. You know, clearly we have a lot to work on there. But they can
Yeah,
all
I
do
don't
it, and
think
I
it's
back them. But
yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable to yeah, to demand more across the board. And again, we
mm.
can throw in Coleman Jones into that discussion as
Well,
well. We
that's the
don't need to
next
talk
player on the
about him.
list. That's the last one. So let's
Don't
chat
talk
about it a
about
bit
him
more.
too much. Well, we've spoken about him quite a lot. He was
Yeah, it's true.
absolutely horrendous today. And
Except that talk.
except for that talk, which is his saving grace, but honestly, that was just a
Yeah, he
freak
was
goal.
rubbish. Yeah.
He was just appalling. And the fact that we've gone and we've signed Sellers is a reflection on where the club thinks that he's at. I think that's not unfair to say.
No, I agree.
And I had him and Sherry in my best 23 when we did it a couple of weeks back. I would get rid of Coleman Jones. I would keep Sherry in the ruck, and then I would have Greenwood pinch hitting. I think that's going to be the combination that's going to be our strongest at this point.
Yeah, no, that is true. We've talked enough about CCJ though. But yeah,
Yes.
I would probably say maybe not for round 1. I think he will play though, because we have a lack of options in the forward line. He's got the most experience, but yeah, I wouldn't be super confident he'll make much of an impact. I hope I'm proven wrong though, of course.
Of course.
Okay, that's basically the game we've gone over. I think a pretty solid preseason all up, and I'm actually incredibly happy and excited. Once again, we know I can be a little bit pessimistic is the wrong word. No, Marnie.
Nancy over here.
No, I'm just not completely delusional like yourself.
It's so much more fun being where I am, though.
Yeah, not fun to sit next to at the footy, though. I'm joking. So I think pretty good preseason. It's a new game plan. The signings we've made look great, and it's made me very excited to want to go to the football and be a part of it as much as I can. So I think a very, very good preseason, and I'm happy with that. So,
do you know what the best part of the preseason was?
Hugh Greenwood?
Besides Hugh Greenwood?
No, I don't.
Last week's live show. Fantastic caveat, Marnie. Good segue there. We've got 8 minutes left on the chat. So let's talk about the live show for 8 minutes until I rudely cut you off and we say goodbye quickly. You go, mate. Okay. You gush about the live show. No, it was just the best afternoon. I just want to thank everyone again for coming down, for supporting us, for all your kind words and your love and support of us and of the show and of the club. I think we both were just completely overwhelmed by how many people were there and, to sell out the event and to have such a great afternoon and everyone to be so involved as you were. We can't thank you enough.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, at the end of the podcast, like a lot of podcasts I do, I thank people and, I always have a hard time signing off because there's always things I want to say for my appreciation. Even today at the game, I was walking around to try and find Marnie and someone came up to me and said they love the podcast and just recognized my face. And I think that is such a crazy thing to me because I'm just the most normal bloke ever. And, the fact that people listen to the podcast and watch it and consume it still blows my mind. And, I am incredibly appreciative of everyone who came to the event and listens and all that sort of stuff because it's not something I ever thought would be as successful as it's been. And with some, a deep Marnie networking, possibilities of being even more successful. So, thank you to everyone who came out to the live show. I had so much fun. Thank you to Charlie Comben for coming down and just being the best bloke as well. He seemed to have fun. His North Melbourne knowledge on players, his knowledge on Liam Shields is fantastic, as we know.
Incredible.
So clearly his IQ is through the roof. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a fun time. He was so friendly and happy to hang around with everyone after the show. So thank you, Chom, for coming down to that. And yeah, we sort of wandered around the crowd a little bit after the show and met some of you guys and some of the stories. People told me there was a couple that walked. I don't know if I got their names. I can't really remember, so I do apologize. But you guys know who you are if you're listening. But there was a couple who came up to me and just said they listen to the podcast together, and they listen every week. And I don't know, that just means a lot to me. And I don't know.
So
I don't
romantic.
know what to say. But yeah, I don't know what to say about that sort of stuff, and lots of people, lots of commenters, coming up to me and meeting them in person for the first time. Jared from Tassie came into the barbershop on the weekend as well. Unfortunately couldn't get him in my chair because I was fully booked up, but he came in, which I really, really appreciate. So shout out to him. So yeah, I don't know. It was a really, really fun day. I can't believe that happened, and especially something that I've started and luckily enough have Marnie on board for now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm going to start to get emotion. And it was just a really fun day. Thank you to everyone for coming. And I hope we can do many more of those in the future because, yeah, we're just going up from here,
It's all going up, baby.
Wowee. What was your favorite segment, Marnie? Was it roaming, Marnie? Was that the best one?
No, my favorite segment. Oh, I don't know. I think I can't go past the how old you know Liam Shields. I thought that was hilarious.
That was funny
so good.
I thought there was no chance Chom was getting most of those, and he did so well. So
he did so well.
Clearly, his best mates with Liam.
And I saw Liam Shields at the family day on Saturday, and he even mentioned it to me as well after I told him about the live show. And he goes, "Yeah, I heard Chom did really well. I never would have expected him to do that well." So shout out Chom and being the number one teammate that he is.
Absolutely. If you haven't watched it yet, we do have a YouTube video. It was filmed, so it is on YouTube. If you haven't watched the live video yet, please do. It's definitely more immersive, and you can see actually what was going on. So get over to YouTube, subscribe, like it, and watch the video because, yeah, I think it gives you a much more deep, authentic experience. You know what I mean?
And hopefully it's the first of many little fun bits and pieces that Josh and I can pull together for you guys for the season.
Absolutely. Really quickly, we've got a few minutes left. Do you want to talk about Besties footy, Marnie, by any chance?
Yeah, so Besties footy is coming soon. I did our first video on the weekend. You can find that on TikTok and on Instagram. So if you see me floating around the place with a mini microphone, I'm swapping the big podcast microphone from time to time to the little content creator microphone. So if you do see me floating around, just make sure you come and say hello.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's just at Besties Footy, right, on Instagram.
Correct. So that's it's another little venture that I'm moving into. So a lot of fun North content coming your way this year. Wow.
And we did find out that Zach Fisher's girlfriend puts water on her wheat bix. So that's I can't believe their relationship has lasted. That's gross.
If you haven't seen the how do you like her wheat bix video, then that is
it is actually very funny now. Because sometimes that question has been asked a few times before, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, there'll be some standard answers in here. There wasn't. There was actually some real weird, crazy answers. Really, it was a very fun video. Ones. So LDU eats about 4 trillion wheat bix for breakfast, and then he didn't know that was weird with how many he was eating. So. Yeah, go on and have a look at it, guys, if you have not. We've got a couple of minutes left, Marnie, so we'll sign off now.
I'm going to bed. I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm so tired. Oh, jokes. I've got to edit this thing. So anyway, I'll get on the grind while you're sleeping.
I had to change a tire, okay?
Well, I was about to say thank you for jumping on Zoom today. After your day has been super stressful. So you can sleep easy tonight knowing you can drive tomorrow. Hopefully a decent analysis of the game. Hopefully many more analysis. I don't know the plural for that word. There's probably no plural.
Analysis. That's
analysis, I'm going to go with.
That's it. Yeah.
Thank you for listening again, everybody. We'll be back next week. I guess round 0 sort of starts. I don't know if we'll do, maybe we do who we think our best 23 is going to be or who we think is going to do round one next week.
Let's talk about this off air, hey?
Yeah, I guess so. I kind of
Let's
just
let
want to
everyone
do
go
it
to sleep.
because I wrote some stuff down this afternoon about it and I was like, oh, but what about this guy? But what about this guy? Anyway.
Tell us in the comments what you want to hear from us next week. How about that?
That is
and
true.
hopefully we'll be back in the same room, no more tire troubles.
Yeah.
And it'll be everything as per normal. For now, follow us on Facebook, Further North Pod, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
All of them.
If you want Josh's number, slide into my DMs and I'll give it to you.
That's a crime, Marnie, and I've got that recorded right now. So I feel like I can hold that against you and I can keep that footage in case you double cross me one day.
It's never going to happen. You know that.
Yeah, that is true. Super loyal. As loyal as Harry Sheezel, some say.
I'm going to bed. Good night, everybody.
Sweet dreams, dreaming about Hugh. I'm going to dream about George, and everyone else is going to dream about North Ball. So we're all going to have a good night's sleep.
See you next week.
See you guys. Bye-bye.